Who on earth labeled animals voiceless? These creatures have one of the most sincere and passionate voices that humankind could never think of. Nevertheless, a hand-picked few are blessed with the superpower to hear them. Thank you, O Universe, for including me in that league.
Hello, welcome everybody. On today's show, I'm here sitting at Writers Cafe at Roypeta, enjoying a nice cup of coffee with an author, a debut author that's enjoying good success right now. Thank you so much for being on the show, Suchitra Rau.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
And the book we're taking a look at is The Highway Mafia, as you can clearly tell. It's doing the rounds. It's stirred up a little bit in the reading community. First off, I want to start off with you. Tell me about your story before the book came about. What have you been doing? What have you done?
Okay, I have graduated in Master in Business Administration, right? So after that, I went for a successful career in sales and marketing. So I worked with different organizations like banking, insurance, and freight forwarding. So right now, I have a successful career in freight forwarding. I'm in the middle managerial cadre. So yeah, so that's about me.
Okay, now when you said that, and you said that to me off camera as well. Yeah. Your job profile and what you do is very different from an author who would write about something that is inspired by a lot of true events, which is actually gut-wrenching to a certain extent, which is cleaned up to a certain extent again to put in your book. But how do you make that transition? Why did you make that transition to becoming an author?
Okay, becoming an author was something like, right from childhood. I was a very ardent reader, so I used to read a lot. And J.K. Rowling, like Harry Potter, like who wouldn't like her, like, so she was one of my inspiration. So that's when I decided that, when I was reading, it's like one day I have to, become like her. So that was way back. But then it was just hidden somewhere deep inside, and then once your 10th board exam starts, 12th board exam starts, so you become so studious and, you don't have time for all of it. Then you have to, have a career. So I completely, that part of me was completely lost. Like I didn't even read, in that part of my life. And later on, I was into activism. So that's when I was I was working for different causes, but hardcore activism was when I was 22, 23. So we used to do some, catching trucks or confronting a lot of crimes, and I was reading about it. If you see, today we are in India, we don't sue much. In abroad there are a lot of laws where the citizens, the government and everybody are scared of the citizens because they know the art of suing. So I wanted to know, so say every day we see a lot of crimes and we have to see why is that particular thing happening, and I used to wonder. So that's when when one of my friend was going for this cattle trafficking expedition, I was let me go and let me see what is there in it. So when I was just researching and when I was doing this, and I was people were telling this should be taken into a movie and things like that. So that's when I was sitting and thinking this. That's when all of a sudden, the author in me came. So I was like, okay, why don't we write a book on this? Because a book is something that will reach a lot of people, and because this kind of research needs a lot of content, I'm going to put it across, right? So a normal movie, maybe we couldn't justify it. So I thought, why not write a book? And then that's where it began. So again, when I started the book, also it was more of a I didn't want to make it it's about cattle trafficking and it's very serious and things like that. So I invented characters, and so it was 30% fact, true events as rightly pointed out by you, and remaining 70% was purely I wanted to add creativity. So I had created a heroine based on the real life characters I've seen, mix of everybody I know, and then I thought, okay, I'll create strong characters in the book, and that's it.
It's also a safer way to handle such things as opposed to getting into...
I wouldn't say safer, but it is definitely a more interesting way, because if I'm going to go and give a very scientific research-oriented, documented, data-oriented research journal, yes, of course, people will be interested, but my audience is not people who already know about this, right? They will already know about this, maybe they will 10% of it they would know, but I wanted to reach out to a larger extent, common people, like youngsters and people who I wanted to reach out to everybody and to tell them that this is what it is, this is the reason behind cattle trafficking. So I fixed a genre. So first I fixed it as a crime thriller, then it became a political crime thriller because that's what it is. So I didn't want to hide away from it. It is a political crime thriller. So yeah, so I just fixed it, and my next book also I planning to keep it in the same genre.
Okay. Now, one of the things I found very interesting while I was having the conversation with her about the Highway Mafia is now a lot of people, and it's very common in film line or even for many authors to sort of immerse themselves in a situation to sort of bring out the characters that they want. This, considering, is called the Highway Mafia. You wrote this on the highway.
Yeah, okay, that's something I would, it's like I would like to share because lot of the the two events which had happened was in 2013 and 12, I think, like, way back. So when I started the book in 2016 June, so I didn't remember what exactly happened during that point of time. So what I did was I actually took a place somewhere in ECR by the end in Pondicherry.
And this is all by yourself?
By myself, yeah. Like, because I have to have the inclination, right? It's my baby, like,
It's your baby. You want to do it all completely on your own, yes?
Yeah, my parents were there to support me, of course,
Yes.
like without any support. I'm not like, just individual person. Yes, of course, I have people backing up me, my mom, my dad, my mom especially. And but they, I went alone. The 30 days I was alone because I I like writing alone. I'm not a person who can write in crowded places or in a regular schedule. So I had a lot of privilege leaves, like, I took everything together. I went, sat one day and just sat and I couldn't write. I had a big writer's block and I used to think and wonder, okay, maybe I made a mistake. I should have taken a Bangkok trip or something, I did a mistake by coming here. So 2-3 days later, what happened was, I was going for a cup of tea nearby. So I was in the highway, so I was starting to get, the glimpse. Like I started to, whatever I went
through, the story started to form,
and whatever I wanted to write started to come, because I wanted to create a book in which when the person is reading the book, they have to feel like I am in the highway and I'm writing the book. I'm reading the book, right? They should feel like, okay, I am there. The cattle trafficking is happening right in front of me. So I wanted to create that kind of an aura, right? So that's what I did. Was the next day in the night, I went in front of the highway, so the security used to lock up the door and he used to sleep somewhere. So I used to put a table and chair right there with a mosquito coil, sit, and from night 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock I used to write with a rental list. So that's how the book came. And when some readers and some reviewers had given me an honest feedback, telling that, like, when we were reading, I felt like I was sitting on the road and the highway. So that much of a hard work made sense.
I know that's a bit of hard work, but that also is a lot of very, very dangerous.
No, it wasn't actually dangerous. I was in a good place where the gates were closed and, like, I had a caretaker. So I wouldn't say it was dangerous, but the cattle trafficking expeditions I have done with my fellow activists, yeah, that is a bit dangerous, because that time we won't know. We're going to go and stop a truck. We don't know who's going to jump out of it, what's going to happen.
You don't know the outcome of what could possibly happen.
Yes, and we don't know even if you're doing right or wrong. But mostly, like, we used to take police support. We used to tell the police beforehand sometime and go. So that's the only thing. Or call 100. But then it was a big risk. I don't know what made me take the risk, but it was a big risk.
Now, approaching a topic like this, I'm sure that has to have its own pros and cons, its own danger zone to approach something like this, because you're touching upon a syndicate essentially.
Yeah, so it's actually an unorganized mafia, right? It's like unorganized mafia, but it's a crime is organized. Why I would say it's an organized crime? Because these traffickers have a clear base, right? They have a modus operandi. If you see what the book, there's a map towards the left. So there was a lot of research, but that map is just one route which is illustrated here for the book purpose. So they have a base and they have different sort of a setup where, they house the cattle, which they hide the cattle in, because it's again a multi-billion-dollar worth crime, right? I mean, it's not something simple. So in fact, you rightly pointed out, it's a vindictive, crime, and yeah, it's hitting out on them, but then someone has to write about it, right? I mean, that's the reason I wrote about it. But I will just, for your imagination, or like for you to understand better about the subject, I would just say that what inspired me to write this book, just that one point. First time when we were in Madura Royal Highway, we were standing and I was not very much concerned about this. I wanted to just see, because whenever cattle trafficking happens, I that point of time thought it's a very highly politicized stuff. First I thought it was legal. Second, there was a lot of political tag, and then I was like, okay, I do a lot of activities, humanitarian and everything, and also I had fear, right? People used to tell, oh my god, these people are so vicious. But they were,
which is what I meant. The dangers.
Yeah. So that did have an impact on me. But sometimes we should just see what is there in it, what maximum could go wrong. So, I just thought, okay, let's just go with them and see, because I was the only girl, I think, that point of time with the entire group. So being a girl was like, what is she doing there in the highway, and I just was inquisitive, like what happens, let's see what worse can they do, right? So I was just part of it, and one thing after the other happened. So what exactly inspired me to write this book was, so I'm a student of business administration, right? So I was looking at the economy part of it, and when that was happening, so it was about like one truck was passing by, and I was seeing like about 50 trucks with 50 cattle going in. I was just sitting and doing the math, okay, so I was asking a person how much is the value of one cattle, and they told that it's about 30,000. So I was sitting and calculating, and that one night 7.5 crore.
You can just see banks and banks go past as when you see the trucks go past.
Yes, and that was in a span of like 4 to 5 hours, and 7.5 crores was the worth. Okay, even if I'm saying it's a little over exaggerated figure here and there, still we are talking about something around 4.5 to 5 crore one single night. It will not be a turnover of most of the companies. For SMEs, they're aspiring to get that kind of a profit. So this is a multi-billion-dollar profit-oriented industry, and it's not, people are not bothered. I mean, I wouldn't say bothered. People are like, they're not even aware of what's happening. So I thought, okay, why not just write? So yes, they were vindictive. Yes, God was with me, so I could confront. So it's more of an investigative, like how do you say, investigative journalism. So I wanted to keep it as an investigative novel. But I wanted to keep it only at 30% because I wanted people to enjoy reading the book, right? So because they're going to pay some money and get the book, so they need to get the worth of it. So they need to laugh, they need to cry, they need to feel emotional about it. So I just thought maybe we'll give it in a mixed platform rather than giving it to a plain.
Now you've mentioned you've been an animal activist for a while, for one reason or the other. I'd like to know what sort of journeys you've had over there, as in. How have you taken part in that battle, so to speak, or what have you done?
Okay, so the first part was when I was talking about the first Saturday night was to do some sort of a documentary researching on this. The second time I went was a properly planned cattle trafficking expedition, which was spearheaded by one of my friends with a lot of gang of boys and girls. We didn't belong to any sort of any sort of perspective. We were just everybody, all religions, every sort of people, like young, old, everybody who just want to confront a truck and see what happens. Everybody who felt that's not right. No vegetarians, non-vegetarians. There were people who used to eat non-vegetarians food when we were going for cattle trafficking expedition, and the vegetarians were okay with it because there's a larger cost to it, right? So
the bigger picture is
Yeah. So what we used to do is we used to gather. We used to go to Madrigal Highway or Chengalpet toll station, and we'll wait. So when the first truck, they have a modus operandi, like the first truck you never catch it, right? Because they leave the first truck, and then it's about 20 minutes. There's no other truck because this guy checks if there's any activist or anybody catching the truck. So it's actually beautifully covered in my book. There's some chapters covering this because I felt it's interesting. So the next truck comes exactly after 20 minutes, and after that, every 5 minutes you have a truck.
There's something else that you brought up as a point, which is not a phrase that you hear used too much, at least in this part of the country, which is racism.
Yeah.
Although we have it over here, it's quite prevalent in its own way, with its own template.
Yeah.
But you deal with that with a little bit, or that was sort of an inspiration for you to.
Yeah, but that's a very, very subtle, in a very subtle manner. I have done something, which is I have not described any skin tone of my character, because people, when I was discussing at the beginning with few of the writers, they said, see, if you're not going to put a skin tone, it's going to be very difficult for people to imagine, and the characters will not be strong enough, and you might fail in the book. I said, I don't care. I'm not going to put the skin tone. A person is not defined by the skin tone. So I'm against racism in any form.
But does that really fall under, this is just to get an, does that really fall under racism to not put a skin tone? At the end of the day, that could be just to put a face for someone, so when someone's reading, they have an entire image, they have a face to it.
No, I wouldn't say, see, a lot of respectable authors do it, so I don't blame them, right? It's the right way of putting it, it's their way. I don't have anything to tell about it. It's not exactly telling about racism, but I felt that I should do something which is against racism, to show it very strongly. So when, as a debut author, when I'm taking a debut author, I'm taking this risk. It was a big risk. When you're not going to, I'm trying to build characters, and I'm not telling what skin tone they are in, because I'm leaving it for the imagination of people. Because you know, there's something like, okay, sometimes it could be stereotyped, right? Okay, the hero is always in such and such a color, the villain is always in such and such a color. So I didn't want, the heroine is always like, you know, such and such a color, and she has to be like. So there are sometimes I've just little bit described on how the features are and other things to get a glimpse of it, because otherwise I cannot create a strong character. But I have seen to that not even a single character of mine, including the protagonist, will not have a skin tone description. And this is my way of contributing to anti-racism campaign.
Brilliant. I could have said it, I couldn't have put it in any better words. The name of the book is The Highway Mafia, Suchitra Rau, ladies and gentlemen. You can pick it up at stores near you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
But before we wrap up, anything that you can tell us about your next book or whatever?
Yeah, okay,
you
next
plan
book,
for next?
I wouldn't want to tell what exactly is the next book all about, because that's
But it's
again
along the lines of the same
a
theme?
very vicious mafia, more vicious than cattle traffickers. So it's an international crime, but it's not to do anything with animal activism. It's something to do with a natural resource which is getting depleted. It is taken seriously.
Which is?
You'll have to wait for.
Okay. Okay, you can tell me that off camera. It's
Yes,
fine.
okay.
Alright, that's about all the time we have. I'll see you guys next time. Suchitra Rau, Highway Mafia, check it out.
At times, we face an opaque fence in life. Though our heart wants us to jump over it, our brain wants us not to pursue the unknown, as we do not know what waits for us on the other side. But from time to time, one has to take the chance and go for the dreadful leap, as sometimes the best things in life are found on the other side of the fence.